I might kick off. I think we've got a fair amount of people that have joined us live. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. As I said, happy National Apprenticeship Week. So most of you know us already, but just in case anyone new on the call, just to introduce myself, my name's Emma McWalter. I'm a senior program manager at Workwhile. I joined the organisation actually over 4 years ago now, which has flown by. So starting by learning everything about apprenticeships and being the liaison for SMEs, so helping them through all the different stages of the process to having an apprentice on board, and then moved from that role into more of a program management role. I now look after our East Bank project, which is about creative, cultural, and educational apprenticeships in East London. And obviously, the reason we're here today as well, the Crown Estate Create programme, which focuses on green and heritage skills for the Crown Estate supply chain. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure to work on this over the last sort of year and a half, and we are now confirmed to deliver it continued into the end of December this year. And counting, but we'll see. That's what we're guaranteed at the moment. I will also hand you over to Yvette to introduce herself as well.
Thanks, Emma. So, hi everyone, Yvette Marfo here. I am Business Engagement Officer here at Workwhile. I guess compared to Emma's length of stay here in Workwhile, currently I'm sort of new, I guess. I've been here about a year and a half. And essentially my role is more, I guess, employer facing. I work with SMEs around that apprenticeship support, so helping them with providers, standards, that sort of stuff, and also anything to do with any DAS support that they require, they need. I also work alongside Emma on a number of projects, so East Bank being one of them, and then recently joining Emma on the Crown Estate project as well. And we also sort of work on another program again around developmental, but again that's something I would touch onto a little bit in more detail as well, and just essentially helping businesses with that employer journey, and then with the Crown Estate piece of everything, that's where I'll be sort of that'll be my main point of call to help them along that journey and getting them set up with apprenticeship standards, providers, that sort of thing. So that's me in a nutshell.
Excellent, thank you. And yeah, do keep introducing yourself in the chat as well. I can see that's kicked off a little bit, so good to see some familiar names in there as well. So what will we talk through today? We are trying not to bore you too much with too many slides, and I do want it to be interactive. So as I said, if you do want to come in, ask a question, or share an experience at any point during this presentation, pop your hand up or put something in the chat and we can bring you in. We are going to be running through who Workwhile are, our Crown Estate Create programme, so what is the background to the programme, what are its aims, and how did we kind of come to working on this project with the Crown Estate. Moving into a bit of the kind of background to apprenticeships, why they are so useful for social mobility, why they have such good social value, and what the benefits for businesses and wider society that we see from apprenticeships. The Heritage and Carbon Report findings summarised. So this is the report that fed into the creation of the Crown Estate Create programme, looking at skills gaps, particularly with net zero, green and heritage skills, particularly in construction. We'll then hand over to Yvette to talk us through the employer journey, so each of those stages that we can help and assist when it comes to apprenticeships. We will then look at the past year or so in terms of impact so far with the Create programme. Got some really nice impact results from last year, which I'm keen to share, and is all down to some of the people on the call will be featured in those apprenticeship starts. So yeah, in advance shout out for that work, and then we'll do a deeper dive on some green apprenticeships and heritage apprenticeships just to show you what's out there in terms of Skills England. You will have noticed that iFate has changed to Skills England now. There's been quite a lot of change going on in the government department, so apprenticeships are moving now into the DWP's domain rather than the DFE's as well. So there's lots of changes going on. I'm going to get into those in a lot more detail towards the end, and I'm assuming there'll be some questions around the levy and how that's changing from the Apprenticeship Levy into the Growth and Skills Levy, and what that actually means is something that we'll be covering in more depth today. We'll then do a deeper dive into our line management training program, which also I know I think some people on the call might have actually done it themselves or have put other people on that program. So Yvette's going to give us a bit more detail on that and why we train line managers and why we think that's important. And then we'll have time for discussion at the end as well. So, who are Workwhile? I think most of you know us by now, but just to start from the beginning, we are a small charity. We were actually created by a think tank called IPPR, which is the Institute for Public Policy Research, and we're one of their incubation projects. So what that means is it was the idea for the charity was thought up in relation to a project that created a report looking into the apprenticeship levy and seeing how it was spent across the country. What we could see from the impact so far from 2017 to about 2020 was that a lot of it was being spent on high level apprenticeships, so your kind of leadership and management roles, or training middle management at large organisations that pay into the levy. And it was really missing that key step for social mobility, which is creating apprenticeships for small businesses and also for younger people at lower levels. So actually you can see in terms of the way the policy of the Labour government is shifting now, is shifting more towards that. So that's something that we're welcoming and making sure that we can continue and make sure that the levy gets to the right people to have more lifelong impact. So our mission as a charity is to create an equitable world of work where everyone has access to meaningful and lasting employment. So we do that through our work on apprenticeships, but also our funded projects. And we'll also have done some work exploring other vocational routes to work. So yeah, there'll be more to find out about units and V levels and T levels and all of these new routes into work that we're getting from the new government. So the background to the Create programme it's a really exciting project where we were in touch with the Crown Estate. They found out about the work that we do in terms of supporting employers and then creating apprenticeships. So they looked at their own supply chain across their London redevelopment sites. So a lot of grade 1 and 2 listed buildings in central London. I know some of you are working on already. I'll go into the exact sites in more detail later on, but you can see some of them in the photos there as well. So a bit of New Zealand House and some in Piccadilly that we've visited. So this work is all about creating as many high quality apprenticeships within that supply chain as possible. So the Crown Estate have obviously their own social value targets, but we're here to make sure that those get met, but also that we're offering apprenticeships to those most in need. So we're working with charity partners, the Crown Estate's own charity partners, and also other avenues for recruitment. So different youth employment charities and local authorities, etc., to get the opportunities in front of those where it will have the most impact. And then we're using this project to particularly promote green and heritage apprenticeships as well. So that's green according to the Skills England definition. I'll go into more detail about what's out there in terms of green apprenticeships later in the presentation. But in terms of the heritage and carbon report, that's the skills gaps that were noted were particularly about how to retrofit heritage buildings, which is obviously something that's going to be growing and lots of organisations and land management companies are going to need to consider over the next 10, 20, 30 years. So being able to use this as a blueprint across different areas and other organisations, I think is a really exciting potential impact of it long term. So to go into that heritage and carbon report, some of you might have seen this before if you've joined us for previous events, but essentially it is worth reading the whole report. It's a really interesting and well summarised piece of work that was with Grosvenor, the Crown Estate, Peabody, Historic England and the National Trust. So all organisations that work predominantly with heritage buildings. It wasn't just London focused, it was looking across the whole of the UK, and it looked at how many workers they need to solely be working on retrofitting historic buildings, and that number is really high. It was higher than I was expecting. So until 2050, in order to meet the targets on that, we need over 200,000 new workers that are focusing on that work. They also did some research into how many organizations had training that's specifically about looking after pre-1919 buildings in the past 4 to 5 years, and that was 75% hadn't. So a bit of a gap in terms of training that's quite specific there. And then also looking at the potential output. So there's lots of money in the economy that is up for grabs from this piece of work in general across the country, looking at how we can retrofit historic buildings. So yeah, almost 300,000 jobs there as well. That is looking at domestic and commercial buildings as well. So normally we also discuss, the key benefits to your business that apprentices have. I feel like most people on the call are very familiar with that. I think most of you have had apprentices or are in the process of doing that currently. So I thought I'd just launch straight into the kind of step back, bigger picture in terms of why apprenticeships are key for social mobility and for the economic growth of the country. So we see apprenticeships as really gaining popularity at the moment. So young people are really looking at it as the best way for them to get into work, get into well-paid work, and also be able to earn and learn at the same time and avoid the large amounts of student debt, which is kind of all over the news at the moment in terms of how much that interest is going up and the impact that can have on what's possible for people long term. It also is not just about young people. As we know, a few people on the call probably have apprentices that are older as well, so not necessarily just left school or left university, but it's a really great way for people to be able to change sector and reskill, or maybe move in or out of self-employment. So there's lots of options in terms of who it creates pathways for. We are also addressing a nationwide underspend in training. So when you look at the UK compared to other European countries, we don't spend anywhere near as much on training of our staff as other countries do in the EU. So using this apprenticeship levy, or the Growth and Skills Levy, I should say, will really help to tackle that. And then it's also directly tackling the NEET issue that we have at the moment. So NEET standing for Not in Education, Employment or Training. We actually have a large number of NEETs at the moment in England compared to other countries as well. And it's something that's actually increasing rather than decreasing. So the more opportunities we can create that are inclusive and attractive to young people, the better. I have popped some links down there as well. So if you do want to read about any of those in a bit more detail, there's some really interesting reports about the impacts of apprenticeships on wider economy there, which I'll include in the follow-up as well. I'm now going to hand over to Yvette, who's going to talk us through a little bit more about the employer journey for this project specifically. So when you're part of the Create programme, what are the kind of key stages of the process and what you can benefit from?
Thanks, Emma. So just looking at the employer journey, we start off with a kickoff meeting, and the main purpose of this is to ensure that you choose the right apprenticeship and training provider from the outset. This is the starting point where we understand your business needs as an employer, the roles, requirements, and the goals that you have in mind. And then if you're unsure, we explain the relevant apprenticeship standards and which providers best match those needs. We can't recommend another provider over another. However, we can shortlist the ones best suited to the apprenticeship. And then after that, we facilitate an introduction once it's clear which standard is needed. And then looking at the timeline, during the call, we touch on what a realistic timeline looks like for you. So regarding advertising the role to the start of the job as well, which also involves getting in touch with relevant providers to find out start times, which we communicate with you once you're sure. And then depending on whether this is an upskill, we can get a levy transfer set up if needed, or for new starts, we can share a template for the job advert to get everything going as well. For this template, we'll just require all the key details such as salary, hours of work, location, entry requirements, and that sort of thing. And then for the new starts, we advise getting the job advert out maybe 2 or more months before the start date, just to give you enough time to source the right candidate as well for the role. So we share this with our contacts that are provided on the recruitment guide. And throughout this time, we still have a few touch points in place to see how the recruitment is going and whether any interviews have been secured off the back of this. Looking at the apprentice onboarding side of things, so with the onboarding, we, as part of WorkwHile's offer, we can provide you with a levy transfer if needed. We match you with a donor to cover the funds of the apprenticeship training and saving you from that 5%, that's 5% cost. So whether you're using your own levy or required transfer, we'll then set up a call to support you with the DAS actions once everything is completed, and ensuring that everything goes smoothly with that as well. Looking at developmental, I won't give you, I'll provide just a quick overview as I'll go into a bit more detail later on throughout the presentation, but this is a free course for line managers of apprentices or those who will be managing apprentices within the next 3 months as well. The program aims to help build confidence in managing early career talent, improving retention and highlighting coaching skills. They are virtual sessions with about 6 hours worth of training spread across a 4-week period. So I won't give too much away. So I will touch back onto this later on. So give you more information on that. And with the Good Work Health Check. So finally, we offer you the choice of completing a health check with us. This is something we've included in other projects, as I mentioned earlier on, our East Bank project, which is really a great aspect of the project. And we get such good feedback from some of our employees to recognize how good it's been for them. And essentially, it's just an optional review to talk about your people practices under the 4 categories of pay, fair pay, health and well-being, diversity and inclusion, and skills and progression. So we have a chat through any areas of strengths or any areas of improvement, and we put together a report with recommendations on best practices. So you can choose to repeat the process years later if you choose to, just to sort of track any changes and see what's been implemented essentially. Thanks, Emma.
Excellent, thank you.
And then looking at our charity partners. So as part of the programme, we work with a number of the Crown Estate's charity partners, one of which being Breaking Barriers, who create employment opportunities for refugees and asylum seekers. And then we have Drive Forward, who help experienced young people from a care background into work as well. Under One Sky as well, who supports homeless people in charity. In London, sorry. And then we have Amazing Apprenticeships, Net Zero Careers Accelerator, LSBU Green Skills Hub, and Building People, who provide free platforms for vacancy advertising. So as I mentioned before, we share it out with these recruiters and they get the roles out there just to kind of get a better reach as well. Most of the jobs are in Westminster, but just to note, there are no barriers with Section 106, and we have been able to recruit from all over London without any issues at all. We are also working on a new piece of work around apprenticeship opportunities recruiting prison leavers. So where some employees are looking to attract socially conscious talent and recruiting these prison leavers, we are in talks with charities such as Beating Time, who have organised an employment programme to support people during their sentences and after release. So there's quite a few partners, and we won't be stuck with anyone to sort of share these adverts with. So we will do the best that we can to get you the right candidate for the role, essentially.
Excellent. Yeah, a lot of these have been really helpful. We've seen apprentices start that have been referred to from Drive Forward Foundation, quite a few from STC Group as well. And Net Zero Careers Accelerator is a great resource as well. It's a fully funded charity also, so it's one of those things that sounds a bit like what's the catch, and a bit too good to be true, but they offer recruitment services for all types of green jobs, and it is 100% free. So yeah, if there are any other organizations, say you work closely with some charity partners that aren't on this screen, or you're interested in finding out more about supporting particular demographics, then let us know, and it's something we can research and deliver as part of this program as well. Recently, as I said, looking into prison leavers. I've also had some interest in the Crown Estate about veterans and ex-service people, so about how we can help them into work. So that's something I'll be looking into in the next few months. And yeah, I'm going to do a shout out now if anyone knows any charities that particularly look at helping women into construction roles, because actually that, from what I can tell through my Googling, is a bit of a gap in the market for that at the moment. There was an organisation called Women into Construction, but they're not currently operating. So if anyone yeah, does have any ways that we can try and increase the number of females getting through, then that would be great. Excellent. So Yvette mentioned our levy transfer offer. That's part of this project and the support that we provide. So just to take a step back from that and go into the levy in more detail. So I'm sure most of you are aware of this already, but if you pay over 3 million a year in your annual payroll, so across all of your staff on an annual basis, you'll automatically be paying into the apprenticeship levy. That's something that can be accessed through your digital apprenticeship service account, and it's 0.5% of what goes over those funds goes into the apprenticeship pot. So that funding sits in that account. It doesn't go anywhere else unless you log in and either start your own apprentices or transfer it to another organisation. So you can transfer up to 50% of the funds in your account to organisations that would have either had to co-invest or have run out of their own levy if they pay into it. So this is going to change slightly, but not until August, September this year. So I will go into that in more detail. Don't worry, I'll talk through what's going to be coming up in terms of the levy, but how it works currently and how it will be for the majority of the year of this programme. Any organisation that has its own apprenticeship levy, we would encourage you to spend that on your internal apprentices, or if you've got a subcontractor, you could also transfer it to them as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, say you have a subcontractor that you use quite a lot for across your projects, and they have a social value commitment, or they're looking at getting an apprentice and would have otherwise had to pay, that's something that you could offer. If anyone wants to find out more about levy transfer, they can get in touch with us and we can help facilitate that too. We have a large donor network, so these are just some of the names. There's probably quite a few more that aren't on this slide at this point, but that we've worked with throughout the years. So some in the kind of tech law space, the ones that would be more relevant to the construction sector are, so there's some large construction organisations on there, such as Overbury, Morgan Lovell, property management like Mighty and Mace. We also have Multiplex, who is one of the tier 1 contractors for the Crown Estate. As most of you will know, they managed the New Zealand House project. So they have funds that are available for organisations from certain boroughs. And then we also have local authorities as well. So where you'll be working in terms of the Crown Estate sites, obviously there's no Section 106 borough requirement. There are social value targets still. So we still have targets in terms of the number of starts for apprentices, but they don't all have to be from Westminster or from whatever borough it is that that you're working in. So that's just for the Crown Estate sites. However, if you're doing work in Islington or Camden or whatever it might be, then quite often the local authorities have apprenticeship levy to spare as well. That's something that we can help with. Excellent. I also just wanted to show the list of the sites that we're working with so far, and also the tier 1s associated. So what you can see in this donut chart here, so those numbers are the number of businesses, so subcontractors underneath the tier 1 that we're working with across all of these different sites. So these are all of the Crown Estate sites so far. There are 2 new ones which aren't fully in the process yet, but will be coming on board soon. So Roxburgh House and 250 Regent Street. I will be adding those to the list soon. So yeah, so far we've had lots to come through New Zealand House, 10 Spring Gardens, 10 Piccadilly, 33 to 35 Piccadilly, and then 1 Hanover and Glasshouse Street. and we are waiting for tier ones to be assigned to those that don't have an arrow coming off them at the moment. So they'll be going through that tender process and still to be decided by the Crown Estate. So St James's Market and Conduit Street, for example. I have some good results from last year, which I'm really happy to share. So we had a target of 15 apprenticeships to create. We actually achieved 18 last year, so over target in terms of new apprenticeship starts. Just to make it very clear to everyone as well, the Crown Estate targets and also our targets are the same in the sense that they will count anything that's an upskill of a current staff member or a new start apprentice, so someone you actually recruit. Both of those count as a new start, as an apprentice in terms of the social value targets. So 18 were achieved across those sites last year, and actually 13 of those being mid-green jobs. We are still lacking in terms of dark green, but there's a few reasons for that. Not all of the dark green ones match up very well in terms of what the work actually is. And in these construction sites, and some of them are quite based on like forest work, which obviously, don't know if you've been to Piccadilly recently, but it doesn't look much like a forest, so there's not much we can do in terms of getting those apprentices started. However, mid-green is fantastic, and I'll go into a bit more detail about what's included in those mid-green apprenticeships that might be applicable to you. So our new target for this year is 25 starts, and we're looking for 13 more green skills jobs as well. So just to show you kind of the breadth of what's out there, again, when I send these slides out after today, you'll be able to click through that title slide and take you to the Skills England website where you can actually see more detail about all of these. And you can do a bit of keyword searching and exploring what you think is going to be relevant to you. You can see on the left-hand side there what categorizes as a dark green apprenticeship according to Skills England. We have had a couple, so we have had level 2. Oh, sorry, there's a typo in that. I should say waste resource operative. And then you can see there are some that are also potentially relevant. So landscaping, if that's relevant to any of the sites and the gardens around them, that would count as a dark green apprenticeship. One that people often don't realise is dark green is the level 3 electrician apprenticeship. So that's the main standard that people use to get qualified as an electrician. If you do have any electricians working for you or subcontracted to you on site, do let me know because we can count those as dark green. And then I'm going to go into the level 4 CSR one in a bit more detail because actually it's quite an interesting one, and I think one that doesn't get used enough. And then we've also got some examples of mid-green on here as well. So if it's in bold, it means that we've seen starts come through that relate to these Crown Estate sites from those apprenticeships. So we've had quite a few demolition operatives, construction site supervisors. We've also had people coming in at the more intermediate level quantity surveying, and then also moving up to the level 6 chartered quantity surveying. So that's the full degree and integrated degree, which you can do. We're currently helping an employer start that with the University of the Built Environment. So yeah, if you're interested in upskilling some staff that you've already got on that program, that's a really good one as well. As I say, I wasn't going to go into all of these and read them out, but just ones to look at to see what you think you might be able to have in your organisation in the future. The level 4 corporate responsibility and sustainability practitioner, apart from being a bit of a mouthful, is a great apprenticeship. It is actually been put together through like a very wide list of trailblazer organisations, so across lots of different sectors, and the idea being that they are essentially kind of like a head of social value or a social value officer, depending on the size of your organisation. So they are trained in sustainable practices and also anything in the kind of CSR, ESG environment. So they would develop policies, campaigns, strategies, all about social value and sustainability, looking at carbon and carbon use. So yeah, that was something that one of our trustees was actually quite instrumental in putting together. It's common in like law firms as well as construction companies. We know a waterproofing company where the person who looks after the apprentices at that roofing and waterproofing company is on this standard herself to kind of help with her progression and what she does with the social value across the organization. So if that is something you're interested in, do reach out to us and we can tell you more about it. I've also put in the low carbon heating technician as a highlight here because it's all about heat pump installation and potentially solar paneling as well. So if you are interested in that, or if that's something that you're delivering, then that apprenticeship might be relevant to you. I also wanted to just quickly run through what we mean by a heritage apprenticeship. So this is quite broad. It's not as distinct as like when you go on Skills England, you can see exactly what the green apprenticeships are in a list. So heritage is a little bit more flexible. Obviously, some of them are quite creative, more associated with like museums, and perhaps like more of the kind of front of house work in historic buildings. But in terms of construction, there is also heritage apprenticeships that would be relevant. So there's level 2 and level 3 in carpentry and joinery, or in stonemasonry, there's a level 2. There isn't a level 3 for that currently, but it's something that we see as a bit of a gap in provision at the moment. There's bricklaying at entry level 2, as well as level 3, which is the craft version. So what they mean by craft is just that you are quite an expert in the way that you are bricklaying rather than it just being about heritage buildings. So that can be more relevant across modern buildings as well. And then there's things like archaeology that again people can do from an entry level. And then there is also a level 4 historic environment advice assistant. So we've done some work with Historic England as part of this project. Previously, if you attended our webinar this time last year, you would have heard from Historic England talking about their influence on the world of apprenticeships and the work they do to make sure that that we're looking after our heritage assets across the country. So if you're interested in those in more detail, then we can either link you up with Historic England or find a training provider that will be able to assist with those. So, oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm going to hand back over to Yvette for this one to go into a little bit more detail about our line management training.
Great, thanks, Emma. So as I touched on it earlier, I'm going to give you a little bit more background on developmental. So the program was initially developed to help managers to tackle challenges they face with apprentices, such as withdrawals and managers having to adapt their leadership styles around this. Usually worth £500, it is offered free to eligible employers, and it is aimed to those who are line managers of apprentices or plan to line manage an apprentice within the next 3 months. And so far, we've had about 20 managers on the program complete so far. So it's been quite popular with Crown Estate and other projects as well. Sessions do take place online. They're delivering about 6 hours of content over 4 weeks, which covers understanding motivation and engagement, inclusive management, having difficult conversations, and more. There is also an option for a paid cohort, which is offered face-to-face. If this is requested, we can share more information around that as well. We can give you sort of quotes on numbers, on pricing and everything like that. The next cohort does begin on Wednesday, the 25th of Feb, from 9:30 to 11 a.m. So they are 1.5 sessions per week. So whoever will be attending the sessions will ideally be able to commit to all 4 sessions. The deadline to apply is the 18th of February. So if you or a colleague is interested in taking part, do let us know and we can share a commitment form with you and get you all signed up. The sessions are interactive and they give you a chance to view practical content and network with other businesses from a range of different sectors as well. So they can share, what's working for them, and you can also, likewise, you can do the same. And then after completing the course, you'll then receive a certification and a free coaching call with one of the WorkwHile team, giving you an opportunity to implement course content over the call and discuss any sort of challenges that you may be experiencing. We can go into a bit of a deeper dive on those issues that you may be facing. And then here we just have a quote from one of the employers who have taken part in the training, and who were really able to experience the benefits of taking part in the session and how useful the course content has been. So I'll give you a moment just to have a read through and just look at the quote and see if that resonates with you as well. And then that's something we can also, help you with the program essentially.
Yeah, I will also, before we jump off the call today, I will pop in the chat the upcoming dates. So we have a cohort of developmental taking place soon. I will send out most of you will have access to the sign up form probably from before, but I will do a whip around. Yeah, lots of you have apprentices that have line managers that have completed that already. But if there are any more, or if you're looking at hiring new apprentices and you know who that person would be that would manage them in the next 3 months, then they can sign up to our next cohort as well. Yeah, something we've been delivering for over 3 years now.
Like phase 2 now, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So we originally funded by Trust for London to develop the content and have kind of honed that and improved it over those years based on the feedback as well. Excellent. So we've got about 15 minutes left on the clock. If we do finish early today, then that's absolutely fine by us. But I wanted to make sure we had enough time to digest the upcoming changes that's happening to the Apprenticeship Levy in 2026. So I'm going to start by just talking through the key changes on this slide, and then I'm going to pause there just to let anyone come in with questions or reactions or comments to what you think the impact of that could be. The next slide I've got after this goes into what we think the impact will be based on our experience as Workwhile. But yeah, keen to make sure that we can continue to deliver apprenticeships and work in the way that we do throughout these changes. So yes, we are in the process of transitioning from the Apprenticeship Levy to the Growth and Skills Levy now, under the Labour, and as I said, now under the DWP instead of the DFE. So it's a shift for apprenticeships to be viewed more as jobs and more as part of the wider economy of work than an educational route. Although obviously it does span both. I think we all know and are aware of that. But for example, T levels are a lot more focused on attendance at college, and it's like 1 day a week they work, and apprenticeships are kind of the opposite. So apprentices are working for the 5 days of the week as a generalization. So yeah, they have shifted more into the work and pension side of the government policy. So some of these changes have actually happened already. From the beginning of this year, we know that there's no more apprenticeship funding for level 7 apprenticeships. So level 7 is master's level. There are still level 6s available in lots of construction qualifications. The main reason for this is actually kind of what we mentioned at the beginning about kind of how Workwhile came to be in that report we did right at the start, which is obviously looking at which standards are most popular, and actually a lot of businesses were using it to get people chartered managers and accountants and things at that really high master's level, and having that funded by the government. So actually that's why they've moved away from that. There was a surge in level 7 starts after this announcement as well. We've seen a lot of more people sign up to senior leader level 7 courses just before they stopped the funding. So in terms of this project, there hasn't actually been any level 7 apprentices that we have created, which, yeah, it's not like I've rejected any interest in that. It actually just hasn't come up as an interest in terms of what people are looking at so far. So I think that's a real testament to all of yourselves, but also the Crown Estate's kind of targets and looking at that lower level creation and creating opportunities for people to enter the sector rather than just managers benefiting from government funds. And then from August this year, there will be quite a big change. So any organisations that don't pay into the Apprenticeship Levy, so SMEs, will have their apprenticeships fully funded as long as their apprentice is aged between 16 and 24 years old. So that's 16 at the start of their apprenticeship, or 24 at the start of their apprenticeship, and anything in between. So that means that our levy transfer work should probably be less of there'll be less transfer requests. However, there are a few things in the changes that make that a little bit more complicated that I'll go into in more detail. So also from the new academic year, they're going to be removing the 10% top up. So if you pay into the levy yourself, you would have previously received a 10% top up. I think it's annually. They're getting rid of that. I don't think that will make a huge amount of difference, as I'm not sure how much of that 10% top up was previously being used. And one of the other big changes is that they're reducing the expiry period. So I can imagine that this is to encourage people to act quicker when they have apprenticeship levy funds in their pot. We're not exactly sure what type of behaviour it is going to drive at the moment, but what this means is, instead of it being available for 2 years before expiring, it's going to be 1 year, so 12 months. When those funds enter the account, they will exist there for 12 months. If they're spent on an apprentice, then that's fine. And if they're transferred, then that's fine. But if it just sits in the account, it expires. And then they are also increasing the co-investment rate for people who pay into the levy, but then use it all. So if you, for example, are a kind of an SME on the larger side, so you've got like 300-400 staff, or maybe it's 100 staff but on quite high salaries, then you probably pay a bit into the levy, and you might have like 10-20,000 sat in that pot. If you then spend all of that on apprentices, the amount that you'd have to pay in co-investment is going up from 5% of the standard to 25% of the standard. So that is quite significant. And just to be very clear, because this confused me at the start when I was reading about these updates, that's not for people who don't pay into the levy. So if you're a small organisation and your wage bill is less than 3 million, you will just benefit from those young apprentices being fully funded, and then you can co-invest at the normal rate, which is 5%. However, if you pay into the levy and you run out of apprenticeship levy, that's when you'd be paying the 25% and the government paying the other 75%. The only other things written down in that pink box on the side are about foundation apprenticeships. So foundation apprenticeships have actually been available technically since August last year. So there are more details to be released soon in terms of what new foundation apprenticeships there are going to be, but there are 3 in the construction sector. The idea behind foundation apprenticeships is that they act as a gap in between school or college and the world of work. So instead of someone having to choose that they're going to be a roofer or a tiler or a bricklayer, and going straight down that path, the foundation apprenticeships are designed to be more of an entry route into the sector, and for a chance for people to kind of do a bit of rotation. So it's an 8-month program rather than a year. They're quite cheap in terms of the amount of apprenticeship levy it uses up. So it's about 4,000 for a foundation apprenticeship. It does vary, but it's around that mark. And there are also incentives available for the businesses that take on apprentices. So currently you get incentive payments of £1,000 for any apprentices that are between 16 and 18. But if you also get a foundation apprenticeship, there's £2,000 available, I believe. I will pop details of that into an email for anyone that is interested. But that £2,000 is also based on how well that apprentice does, so it's paid incrementally at different points in the programme. We also are awaiting news on units. So apprenticeship units, essentially, we don't know very much about these at all. So I'm going to give you everything I do know, but I might not be able to answer all the questions on that. What we know is that it's going to be parts of an apprenticeship broken down, and the idea being that people can use their apprenticeship levy on these units, the costs of which we're not sure about, and the way the transfer works we're not sure about yet. But these are going to start off mainly in digital and engineering skills, a bit of AI as well. So basically what it's trying to do is create shorter courses that you could get maybe a group of staff on in like digital skills, for example, rather than having to upskill only through full-time apprenticeships that take a year or more. We're hoping to hear more about these at some point, perhaps this week because it's National Apprenticeship Week, but also at least by May this year when they published the new funding rules. Right, sorry, I realised that was probably quite a lot all at once. Does anyone have any questions or reactions to that? I just want to make sure that we get voices heard before I move on to the next slide.
I believe there is an option to unmute yourself on here if needs be as well. So
yeah, if you raise your hand, we think we can do that for you as well. Or maybe there aren't any questions. That's also fine. I know we've had a question in the chat about mid and dark green apprenticeships and how those are defined. I'll come to that at the end, actually. We'll just stay focused on the changes for now. Okay, in that case, in terms of what WorkWhile predicts, based on the work that we've seen so far, we think that we will still get requests for levy transfer, particularly as even though apprentices aged up to 21 are fully funded currently, we still actually got quite a high proportion of apprentices that we've supported with transfers through that are that age. So, you know, just because the government said they'll fully fund it doesn't necessarily mean all of those are going down that route. Some of them are still going down the transfer route. There's a couple of reasons for this. Mainly, we think it's just kind of cohorts grouped together that get sent to us for ease. So if they've got people who are younger and people who are older starting at the same time, then it's easier for them to just send them all across to us for transfer funds, and they might want to use those funds elsewhere. Also, with units coming in, there's probably a high chance that people do want to save more of their own funds to spend on units, particularly if that isn't available through transfer. So you could get your apprentices funded through transfer and then pay for your units separately, potentially. Obviously, we don't know exactly how that's going to go yet. So we also predict that there'll be quite a lot of small levy payers, so people who pay into the levy but only just, that come to us to request transfer instead of paying the 25%. In terms of large employers, so obviously the reduced expiry time means that there'll be more money to spend more quickly, so that will probably increase what people want to transfer. So they have their kind of plan for the year in terms of any internal apprentices. If they know they're not going to have any internal apprentices for at least a year, then we know that those funds are all available for transfer. So that's something that we'll be communicating with donors. And then, yeah, units and defunding of level 7s, we don't know exactly what the results of that will be. But in terms of WorkWhile's perspective, we've always focused more on the lower levels and trying to help those into careers for the first time or changing sector. So it's something that is welcome, and we hope that level 2 foundation apprenticeships pick up in popularity as a result. So if anyone would like to explore those, be a bit of a pioneer in terms of foundation apprenticeships, there is a really, I mean, there's a financial incentive, but it's also just an exciting opportunity to get young people in, and hopefully, you know, because they are a new offer from the DWP, the idea being that they help to break down some of those issues that people were having before. So if you found that you've hired quite young apprentices and they've decided that maybe the quantity surveying isn't the right route for them, or the bricklaying isn't the right route for them, and they feel like they want to do something different, a foundation apprenticeship is designed so that they have that choice and that kind of wider experience when they first join. Brilliant. So I will leave that there in terms of levy changes. We have a couple of minutes left for any questions. I know it's been a little quiet, but do pop anything in the chat or the oh, thank you. I try and put some photos in when we've done our site visits. So what you can see here is a an insight day. So this is something I wanted to mention as well. KPH, who I believe are on the call, have been particularly good at having insight days where young people from all different referral partners can come in and experience what it's like being on site and learn about the apprenticeship opportunities that are available. You can see me there with my hard hat on and getting involved as well, which I very much enjoyed. So if you're interested in hosting anything like that, that's again something that we can help with as part of this program. I will quickly come back to the green skills definition. So I have popped that in the chat in terms of the exact wording from Skills England. But essentially, firstly, it's a good question because it is something that I'm just using the Skills England definitions for at the moment. But I've had interesting conversations with others about like why isn't carpentry considered like mid or dark green, which is quite odd considering it's a very sustainable practice, obviously. So yeah, it's all about net zero and whether it contributes directly to net zero targets that we have as a country, or if it's something that is like tertiary to that. So yeah, a mid-green being something where you are learning knowledge, skills, and behaviors that help the wider process of transitioning to net zero, and in dark green is something that sort of actively gets us there and is in quite direct impact. So that's their definitions. Yeah, if you have any thoughts about what you think should be green or not green, it looks like the government are doing a big job of running through all the different standards at the moment and streamlining them. So yeah, there's an opportunity to feedback in terms of what's out there and what's not out there, and what you think should be green. It's always useful for us to know. Right, well, we have just about hit time. I will, as I said, follow up with everyone with the slides. I like to end with this quote from a piece of research we did working with young people up and down the country about what is good work to them. So this is actually what our Good Work Health Check is based on. I'm not going to read it out to you, but I think it's interesting in terms of what the younger generation are looking for is actually more about feeling valued, included, and supported, and less about things like pay. And I mean, flexibility and pay are important and they are mentioned in there, but I think it's just yeah, changes some perceptions in terms of what comes out top. I've just popped our details on there. Thank you very much everyone for joining. I will be, as I say, sending all the details out, including the information about our developmental line management training to sign up to. I would really, be interested to hear your thoughts if you want to share anything with us on email about the upcoming levy changes, or if you want to just pick up a one-to-one call with us, that's what we're here for. So yeah, do get in touch. Yvette will be working mainly with the subcontractors, and I'm mainly working with the tier 1 contractors and with the Crown Estate, but we are a team, so anything you send to us we'll pick up collectively. And yes, thanks very much for joining. I hope you have a good rest of National Apprenticeship Week.